SEO podcast, we have the multi-talented entrepreneur, Susan Sadler. She's a master at building companies through her human resources firm, Red Wagon Solutions. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Hey, so first of all, tell our audience how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get a hold of me, probably the best way is through my website. So it's www.redwagonsolutions.com.au. My contact details, my email and my contact form are there. You can just shoot me through an email and I will make a time to have a chat.
And we also have a link in the show notes that you can get directly to Susan and her team. And can you tell me a little bit about your company? Do me a favor, give me your business in one sentence.
Oh, in one sentence. At Red Wagon, we provide commercial HR solutions for our clients. We balance the employee needs with practical business outcomes.
Now, it's a pretty unique space that you're in. So how did you come up into that space, the human resources space?
Years ago now, when I finished uni, I was interested in organisational psychology, so job satisfaction and culture, and started doing research in that area. And then I didn't finish my qualifications to be an accredited psychologist. I fell into HR, started looking at talent, so recruitment, and realised that I had a real passion for employment law, so industrial relations here in Australia. That I actually wasn't quite so warm and fuzzy as doing the culture surveys. I was much better at doing dispute and low-level sort of mediation. Then several years ago, when I was pregnant with my first child, I was made redundant from the corporate role that I was in, and said to my husband, I'm tired of working with businesses that don't treat their employees well. My exit from the business wasn't particularly pleasant. There was a way in which they could have done it with dignity and respect, and it wasn't, unfortunately, wasn't so. And he said to me, well, you've talked about consulting. Why don't you go and teach employers how they should be aligning, their business needs with looking after employees well? And Red Wagon was born at the same time as my first child, or thereabouts, and now both are around 3.5 years old, and that's how we came about.
I love the name Red Wagon Solutions. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
I think I just pulled something out of your answer, was how important is human relations in business? Because I don't think enough people pay attention to the work culture and the atmosphere within the business world.
People are the heart of your business. You will not, no matter how great your ambition and business targets are, you need your people to help you get there. And you need to get the basics right. If that's correct pay rates, correct terms and conditions. This isn't about ping pong tables and bean bags for in the break area. It's just about treating people well and with dignity. And if you get that right, then I think that mostly good things will flow on from that. So it is incredibly important, but you need to not get bogged down in what I rudely perhaps term the warm and fuzzy stuff, because that's superficial, and people are smarter than that. They know that that's the case.
One of your main focuses is to teach entrepreneurs and how they make their companies fun to work at, but you're still there to do the job. But how do you take their companies from the present level to a different level by using Red Wagon Solutions?
The starting point, I think, is making sure that the basic policies and procedures to do with their people are correct. And I often do sit down and do a structural review. So, who's sitting in what role, and what those promotional paths might look like, where the business wants to be in the future, and help them design, if they need to redesign their current structure, and then what their future structure is going to be. So they've got a path for growth and a path for scaling. I think that a lot of businesses start by just acquiring people and hiring them on an as-needs basis, and that doesn't necessarily build the strong foundation to enable them to grow, and sometimes grow rapidly. There's a a client that I've only just started working with, amazing AI company here in South Australia, and they've done just that. They've got a team of 15 really smart specialists in their field, but their exec team they have just acquired, and now they're realizing that actually it's taken the pandemic for them to realize actually there's roles there that they don't need, that aren't going to serve them as they modify their structure and grow. And you know, that's what we do. We sit down and we work out what their future plan's going to be and how they need to get there.
That seems like you not only provide an HR service, you also help companies save money.
Yeah, I do. It is actually an unusual match for HR to have an understanding of finance and cost down strategies. But I really enjoy, for me, it's all about pieces of the puzzle. And I think if you have a good understanding of systems and people and business, then you can absolutely achieve that. And that doesn't necessarily mean just making people redundant, getting rid of them. It's how do you cross-utilize those skills or utilize them in a different way and harness people's strengths to get more out of them. They're still efficiency methods.
Explain how bad it is to hire someone that's not a good fit for the current company culture.
I think that a poor recruitment decision just ends up being the performance management problem of the future. So we need to spend much more time making sure that those recruitment decisions are right fit at the start. The damage that can be caused by hiring someone who isn't the right fit is that it can make a whole bunch of other employees unhappy and really damage your culture and their loyalty, and you could lose good staff as a result of that. You're wasting time and energy trying to manage the poor behaviours or poor performance of that employee, and they can potentially damage your brand, your reputation, and your relationship with customers. So it's incredibly important, and I think whilst businesses know that, they still don't give recruitment the attention that it actually really needs, given how important it is.
How do you avoid hiring the wrong person or a person that doesn't fit?
I think you need to realise that your business values are more than just words that you put on your wall of the reception area. They need to really resonate and be true to what your culture is and what you want the business to be. And you need to build those into part of your selection process when you're hiring. There's various ways in which you can do that, and that can change depending on the type of organisation and the situation and what you're recruiting for. But I think you need to be true to that. And whilst a lot of people wouldn't agree with me, I think that your gut feel as to how you interact with that person through the recruitment process is really important, because you've got to be comfortable working with them. Patrick Lencioni says that you should take people out of the natural environment to interview them, that you take them to, take them shopping or to run errands with you, which I think is, well, not going to work in the current situation that we're in. But I've always adopted a fairly casual approach to interviews. I suppose I've got the benefit of years of experience to be able to feel comfortable doing that, coffee shops, chats, and make people feel comfortable and uncover who they really are, and then make a decision as to whether that is someone who's going to help me drive my business forward.
Have you used those approaches by taking them, say, shopping, or taking, besides coffee, have you used anything that might be a little different to really show how a person really is?
No, look, I haven't. I do think it's interesting. I'm not necessarily recommending it, although Pat is exceptional in this area and he knows his stuff. But no, I've stuck with the coffee shop approach. When I've hired into my business, I have had communications on the phone. I've taken people out for coffee, shown them around my business, taught them, let them interview me as much as I interview them. I use the Gallup Strengths Finder, Clifton Strengths Finder questionnaire and then look at where their strengths are in relation to my strengths and work out whether we're a balance and whether we're a fit, and then rely on my gut as to whether this is someone that's going to help me achieve what I need in the business, but also whether I can help them achieve what they need to achieve in their career.
Say I'm an owner of a small business. Can you explain the importance of being a full partner with the HR team?
We've talked a lot about recruitment, but HR is more than just recruitment. Certainly in Australia, employment law and the world of work is really quite litigious. We've got a number of different legislations that govern all aspects of work, from work health and safety to terms and conditions, whistleblower legislation, modern slavery legislation. It all actually feeds back into HR, and all of those things are important from a fiscal, from a growth, from a planning perspective. So making sure that you have someone who's experienced in HR who can, yes, build your talent, build and support your talent, support your culture, but also make sure that all of those compliance and risk assessments are being adhered to is incredibly important to from a strategy perspective and a forward-focused view.
What do you recommend if I was the CEO, to have a weekly meeting with the HR team, or what would that look like? So when you operate a business, how that would actually come to fruition?
I think it can depend a little bit on where your business is and in terms of what you're looking to achieve. I like to spend a bit of time with businesses to start with to really understand, if I'm going to, particularly as an external consultant, to engage with them, I really need to learn a lot about their business. So I like to spend time on the floor, time walking around talking to people, as well as time with the CEO. For more established clients that I've been working with for a while, I do a quarterly, almost health check, sort of personal advisory board with the CEO, and monthly meetings with their internal, a client that I'm thinking of has an internal HR manager. So I do monthly meetings with her, quarterly meetings with the CEO, and then when they've got projects on like a restructure or like a department restructure or something else, then we put in additional meetings rather than take over the strategy meetings that we've already got. So those strategy meetings are locked in concrete, they're gold, we won't touch them except for strategy, and then any other project is filters in from there. So it works really well, because we never lose focus on the longer term plan that we're working towards, and we don't get distracted by the operational day-to-day. We just slot that in as we need to.
You as Red Wagon Solutions, how do you vet potential clients?
Look, for me, there are two things. One is that my business is built on my values and my ethics, and my clients need to align with that. They need, even if they've got things that are not working well, or they're not treating employees as well as what they should within their business, as long as they've got the desire to do so, which is, results in two things. One is that they want to improve, and the other is that they are going to listen and respect my advice, then they are the right client for me. So it comes down to really nuts and bolts, where are their ethics and values? And sometimes you don't realize that until you're actually working with a client. And I have exited arrangements with people who have been quite lucrative when I've realized that they didn't fit my criteria in that regard. The other is reputation, that if you are chasing clients because you're chasing the dollar, and I completely understand, the pressures that make people do that, then you will get a reputation for working with those sorts of clients, and you'll never attract the sort of people that you really want to. So the hard yards have to be done up front in terms of training your customers around who are the sort of people that you're going to work with, building relationships, nurturing relationships with those clients, and they will, and then asking them for a referral. They will refer you people that are just like them, and that's how I build my business, and you get the clients that are right fit for you.
Susan, Red Wagon Solutions has probably had innovative solutions that they've provided to different companies throughout the time of being in business. Can you tell us one story that really sticks out?
Last year, I was approached by a healthcare company, 1,500 employees, multi-sites. Their CEO wanted to have a confidential chat, and he said to me, look, we've got a HR team of 10, 15 staff. Something's not right. I don't know what it is. Investigations are into misconduct are taking too long. We're just, I just don't know what it is. Our turnover's high. Can you just come in and have a look? He didn't even know where he wanted me to start. So I basically audited their entire HR function. Now, an audit sounds really boring. It wasn't your stock standard ISO tick, tick, tick. I spent a lot of time in with their different HR employees and their operational managers as well. So I established what their processes were from a HR perspective, what their knowledge base was, and then what was actually happening within their business by going and talking to operational managers. And what I found for them was that there was a massive disconnect between what processes and procedures they had, what HR interpreted those processes and procedures to be, and then operations going and doing their own thing and ignoring them. And what the result of that for that business was is that they weren't dealing with issues in a timely manner. They were having a variety of compliance problems, poor performance issues. It resulted in litigation here in Australia. It's unfair dismissals and those sorts of things. Given they were in the healthcare industry, that created a huge amount of risk. And then we had to, once I sat down and gave the CEO the report, which was frankly quite damning, both from a basic compliance but also from a cultural perspective. We had to work through ideas about, well, how do we unpack this? How do we fix this? Because it has to be a holistic solution. You can't, when it's so embedded and incestuous within the business, you can't just take one aspect of it and fix it and expect a result to come. So it's a work in progress. We're rebuilding the foundations of trust within the management team, and then rolling that out through the business, getting the base and going back to basics in terms of policies and training and those sorts of things as well. It's a big project, and when you know that you've got problems, you've got to be prepared to unpack all of that and what those results are going to be.
So you said work culture. So if somebody has a work culture, or someone who doesn't have any culture, if it's a new business, how do you establish a work culture for maybe a new business? And then how do you correct a culture that is going in the wrong direction for an existing business?
Well, culture is created by the leader and your leadership team, and I do think that those things have to filter down to the rest of the staff, recognizing that it is your workforce as a whole that are the organism that living, breathing and evolving, that are your culture, and that your culture will change. I don't think that culture is static. I do think that it changes, and that there are environmental and social and political impacts, as well as economic and those sorts of things that impact what your culture is. I do think that if you have your shining light that people understand is what they're working towards, whether that's your vision or your mission statement or whatever iteration of that it is, then that is the hub of what your culture is. And if that is true to your leadership and where your business needs to be, then you should always be able to recorrect back to that if you stray. But you hopefully won't wait until it's a really serious issue before you actually start to pull that back in. So if you're doing things like living the company values and having that run through your recruitment process and your performance appraisals and your one-on-one conversations, there shouldn't be a need to correct, because you should always be on path. Your leadership and where your business needs to be, then you should always be able to recorrect back to that if you stray. but you hopefully won't wait until it's a really serious issue before you actually start to pull that back in. So if you're doing things like living the company values and having that run through your recruitment process and your performance appraisals and your one-on-one conversations, there shouldn't be a need to correct, because you should always be on path.
So if I'm a new company, what does that look like? How do I do it? How do I set that up? So I come in, I open the doors, I got funding, I have 10 people to work for us to get to the common goal, to sell our products. How do I establish a culture?
I think ask why. Why are you in business? What is your vision? What is the legacy that your business is going to leave, and what is the problem that you are seeking to solve for your customers? And your answer about your culture will unpack from that. If you can't answer the basic why, then I would question perhaps, what are you doing in business? And you may find it very difficult to form a culture that is something beyond just being revenue focused.
So we know our why first to answer the culture question second.
My why in opening the business was to help employers understand that you can make difficult decisions that are sometimes unpleasant, but still treat employees with dignity and respect, and that in doing so you can get better commercial outcomes for the business. So my why was centered around ethics and my belief. And if you unpack that back to my Strength Finder results, you'll find that my results are all around belief and values. But I'm the founder of my business, so my culture, is centered on where I am and what my vision is for what we do and what our legacy is going to be. So I think you've got to have a level of self-understanding perhaps when you start a business that will hopefully inform how you grow and how you take on board your new tribe and your employees.
Say I have a bad work culture, kind of similar to that hospital, it sounds like, that you work with. I have a bad work culture. If I hire Red Wagon Solutions, how do you come in and fix that? Or if I'm a CEO of a business, how do I fix my own work culture?
I think you need to be aware. It's a terrible phrase, but one that I often trot out is that a fish rots from its head first. So you need to be prepared to look at your exec team. And often it is when I'm called in to help with projects like this, it's a new CEO, so they've got legacy issues from previous management. Obviously need to sit back and observe and learn about the team and the dynamics before they rush in and make changes, but they need to be prepared to rip off the band-aid and really work through the layers of management that are supporting perhaps the poor culture, and have a look at some of the processes and problems that are underpinning and sustaining those problems as well. And recognise and be prepared to wear the hurt of making those changes, because that will be employee exits, it'll be restructures, it'll be disruptive, but you do those things because the good employees who you want to keep deserve you putting in that effort to look after them, if that makes sense.
What are some of the tools that you use in your business that are modern, maybe, that people wouldn't really think that make HR a success?
For clients, I always recommend that they have a good HR information system, that they need one source of truth. So employee records, strong payroll, and a payroll that speaks to, in Australia we have enterprise agreements and modern awards. So again, that legislation that always changes, so it's got those interpretation rules in there is really important. Automate the things that can be automated, and keep electronic the things that should be kept electronic, so then you don't drown in paper, which is a bane of my existence for HR. So you, from everything from your recruitment process through to onboarding, ongoing learning and development, incident reports for WHS, talent management, succession planning, performance appraisals, all of that should be in your HR information system, and it all should have a level of automation with people entering in the correct information, because your systems are only as good as the information that you input, right? So, but then you get consistency. Everyone's treated the same way, and you've got one source of information that you can draw on when you do need to run reports, or you do need to try and pick apart, why something isn't working, or why there's poor, why there might be poor behaviours or something like that. So that I think is key. I also
do you have a software, app, or anything that you can actually name so people are listening to us, they can be like, oh, I can use that, or I can use this software, or something along those lines?
Yeah, look, there's lots of different HR systems out there. In Australia, I recommend one called Elmo Software. They are a modularized platform where you can choose the modules that are relevant to your business. So if you want recruitment and onboarding, you can have that. If you want succession planning, you can have that. But if you don't, then that's fine. The big ones are that you're probably aware of in the States are Oracle and SAP. Success factors are really common, particularly in big organizations. When you're a small business, it's a bit harder, and you can get away with having less. I think Bamboo HR, HR Advance, Employment Hero are all much simplified versions of the more enterprise level software that are relatively inexpensive and still exceptionally functional. I think every business should consider a way in which employees can communicate to leadership or HR if they've got them in a confidential manner. So whether you call it a speak up program or a whistleblower program, the platform offered by Whisply, which has been developed by a gentleman who was a whistleblower in Australia, Sylvan, is an incredibly powerful platform for enabling trusted conversations between employees and employers in a very confidential and anonymous way. And Red Wagon actually offer a complaint management solution where we, as an external provider, manage those complaints to ensure that anonymity and confidentiality. But that is an amazingly powerful tool as well. Whisply, definitely worth looking at.
How important, as a small business owner, is marketing to you to get clients? And what do you do to do that, to get new clients outside of referrals? How, say, if I'm a small business owner, how do I hire Red Wagon Solutions?
It's a really good question, and business development isn't these days about picking up the phone and making cold calls, because it's a really good way to damage your reputation and just to get people to hang up on you. I do find that referrals are very successful for me, but having a strong website wireframe, doing regular EDM, so email mail outs, and building your email list. So really nurturing and engaging people is really important, but you need to be very careful that you're complying with your spam acts and those rules, and not pestering people. How do you get people to sign up to and subscribe to your email listings? Well, you need to have good SEO. You need to have set up your website properly and know who your target market are and what they're searching for and how you're going to solve their problem, because that's what people are putting into their search engines. And then everything filters back from that. Develop your funnels in your CRM, and but don't expect to understand and learn those things yourself. As a small business owner, you need to know when you should bring experts in to help you. So I know a little bit about SEO, but I outsource my SEO. I outsource my website design because my time is better spent looking after my prospect customers and my existing customers than it is trying to learn and do an inadequate job of something like SEO.
I learned the hard way in my business too, where we sell professional audio and video equipment, the power of SEO and the power of actually hiring a firm, an outside firm, to do it, because what frequently happens is you're paying attention to that all day, and then and you're not really focusing on sales or taking care of the customer. So and that's where I found that Ardor SEO is really taking my business to a predictable, sustainable growth. So And I think small businesses really have to understand that in order to become sustainable, that has to be a part of the marketing budget.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the current environment as well, people are far more likely to be sitting on their computers at home in isolation and using that as a tool than perhaps they were 12 months ago. It's always been an important part of our marketing and business strategy, but even more so now because that is what people are going to rely on in a almost, shrunk and condensed sort of world at the moment. So absolutely, you definitely need to have a strong SEO, a well set up website, and then really think strategically about how you can present online to people.
Have you had any successes that maybe from your website or something, a unique client that might have came through that you wouldn't think would actually hire Red Wagon Solutions?
Yeah, actually, I had someone come through last week, and he is an interstate contractor. He provides contractors to Australian Defence, and was asking me some very specific questions around. It's quite technical. It was around the defence arrangements between Australia and the US, and how there's certain provisions in contracts that impact that have an impact on discrimination law and applicability to workforces. So it was really interesting. He came by my website and contacted me, and we've started work together this week actually. So that was really exciting. Wasn't an industry, whilst I've got a defence background, it wasn't an industry that I was particularly looking to do work in. I do a lot in not-for-profit healthcare, we've talked about, and in tertiary education. So yeah, it was a bit out of the blue, but a strong website definitely makes a difference. That said, that was my old website. I'm just about to launch my new website, so hopefully I'll get even better results.
Oh, very great. So tell me about your new website. What are you going to do to make it a little more special than the existing?
We're ramping it up this time. So my current website is very light on content. That was very deliberate when I first started the business. I had a vision for what I wanted the business to be, but didn't quite know how to articulate it. So I wanted something that would still be flexible. Now I have a very clear understanding of the services that we deliver and who our ideal client are. So I'm making sure that my website speaks very, very clearly to those people and is also very reflective of who I am. What you see is what you get. We're straight talking here at Red Wagon. We occasionally use rude words and always have a bit of an element of fun about what we do and the way that we approach our life and our work. So I wanted the website to make sure that that was really, really reflective of that. So there's a balance between being really informative, but not providing too much information, and also showing you who we are and what we like to work with.
What's the future lie hold for Red Wagon Solutions?
By the end of this year, my plan is to expand services into collective bargaining, so enterprise agreements here in Australia, and bring on another employee who's a specialist in that area. I've also rediscovered my love for doing workplace investigations, which is a little bit, I did 3 years ago swear that I was never going to do investigations again, but I've realised it's a bit like sleuthing and I kind of like that. So I really am going to look to push that part of the business, and it gives me a great opportunity to go into organisations and say, look, yes, you've got the, one problem doesn't normally just occur in isolation. If I'm here to investigate this, then we need to have a look at what else is happening within your culture that might be encouraging and giving rise to these sorts of problems. So that's sort of the sort of things that I'm thinking of, but they're core services for us at the moment. Well, enterprise agreement isn't, and I think we need to wait and see how business evolves over the next few months, as hopefully we start to move out of the pandemic. I think that there'll be a lot of businesses that need support around creative organisational redesign. achieving efficiencies and automation to be able to work in a much more hybrid, virtual and face-to-face environment. And there's some great opportunities that I'm really excited about there as well.
How has the pandemic changed your business approaches?
I was always very comfortable working virtually. I don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time on client sites. What I found is that I had more time in my day because I didn't have to do the travel. So we could just do a Zoom or a Teams meeting, and I didn't have to worry about my travel time. I did find that I drank more coffee. And we did go quiet because people are reluctant to spend on consultants when they're needing to look internally. But I think people are more prepared to have conversations now, and my support to them is encouraging them to look to what the next normal is going to be. So there's not a new normal, it's just the next iteration that we need to be prepared for, and to make sure that people understand that where their strategic plans were 6 months ago is not going to be relevant because the world has changed. So they do need to sit down, ask some tough questions, look at their vision, look at their mission, what is still relevant, where do they want to be, and work through those plans, and recognize that, as we said before, Chris, you're outsourced to the experts because it saves you time, and you can't be an expert in everything. So providing support where I can.
What do you think the business would look like when you were on to retire? Or do you want to have Red Wagon Solutions be like a global enterprise, or what's your goal for the end term, or when you want to toward the end of your career? What do you want to do with Red Wagon Solutions?
I do have plans, obviously, for the business to grow, and certainly I do have clients already who are interstate. So whilst I'm based in Adelaide in Australia, I do have Eastern Seaboard clients and can certainly have national reach. I think we've discovered through the pandemic that we don't need to travel to service clients anymore, which means that my reach can extend globally. It's not something that I had thought so much about. But again, for the right client, I think there's opportunities, and I am looking at completing, I'm partway through completing the B Corp certification for our business, which is about the business having a social consciousness, and that provides an excellent network globally for us to connect with like-minded ethical businesses. And I would be very happy to work with them and support them on their business needs.
How does Red Wagon Solutions give back?
We give back in a number of ways, and I think both give back to the community, and I like to think give back to the environment through making sure that we're sustainable in our operations, environmentally friendly, energy efficient equipment, and that we recycle where we can, and some of those sorts of things. In terms of our community support, we do provide pro bono services to some businesses, and we particularly have, through the pandemic, small businesses don't have the money to spend to get the legal advice and the expert advice on particularly redundancies and performance issues that they might otherwise. So I've provided a lot of hours of pro bono consulting earlier this year, in particular through the pandemic. I regularly provide support to employees who are perhaps not well supported by their unions, or are seeking further, can't afford legal advice and are seeking advice when they're in a tight spot with their employers. I don't do representation, but people need to understand their rights and what their options are. So, and I'm all about balance. So I do try and sort of provide that support to people where I can.
Tell us one more time how people can get in touch with Red Wagon Solutions and learn more about your HR services. I
think we're putting a link in the show notes, and come straight to our website, which is redwagonsolutions.com.au. Pop me through a note on the contact form, or book a meeting there's a diary, access to my diary on the website as well. You can book a meeting in, and I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you about how we could work together.
What a great learning experience, Susan. Thank you so much. And please check the show notes, because we have created a link so you can directly reach out to Susan and the team at Red Wagon Solutions. So thanks so much for joining us today, Susan.
Thanks so much, Chris. Thanks for having me.
All right. For more great episodes on how you can grow your business, go to ardorseo.com. That's ardorseo.com.